Okay, so Melanie, now that we're in our favorite time of the year, I have a question for you. What are some, maybe your top 2 favorite fall field trips?
My. Well, so I would think right now because, we moved to the foothills of North Carolina about 6 years ago, and we moved from the coast. I grew up in the mountains of North Carolina, so I'm just covering all my bases. On the coast, we had a place called Mike's Farm, and so I really loved mostly what they did at Christmas, but in the fall, they have a beautiful farm just to go and walk around, and they had all kinds of activities, but they had a pumpkin patch, so you could go get a pumpkin and just really neat stuff, old farm equipment to look at and touch and that kind of stuff. And I love that kind of old-fashioned type feel. So that would
Fun.
be one of my choices, and then I like a good old corn maze. Let's go walking through the corn maze.
Yes.
What
That's
about
what I
you,
was
Amanda?
gonna say. That's what I was gonna say.
Or
Corn maze, my favorite. We've been to quite a few over the years, and there are some that are fantastic, fantastic. And I may or may not have had a child get lost in a corn maze once or twice, but it's so fun. I feel like there's so many great field trip things to do in these wonderful fall going into the holidays, so many great things. It's
North
just a
Carolina
fun
has
time.
a lot to offer in the fall and just,
Definitely.
great outdoor environment type things, going to Grandfather Mountain, visiting and just
Mm,
seeing the leaves change. So many places to go hiking. Just it's a great state.
absolutely.
Ugh,
I hope you guys out there, you watchers and listeners, I hope you're taking advantage of this awesome season and going on some great field trips. If you are, I'd love to hear about it. I know Melanie would too. Please tell us, what's the best field trip you've been on lately? Do you have anything great planned? We'd love to know. I am Amanda Wares, the host of the Homeschool Show from North Carolinians for Home Education, and my co host is Melanie Willis. Hey, Melanie, what do we have for today?
okay, so today you sat down several weeks ago. We had our homeschool retreat or our NCHE board retreat, and
Mhm.
you sat down with several of our directors and husbands and spoke with them because they were second generation homeschoolers. And so we're going to listen to a couple of things that they said about being a second generation homeschooler. And so, just like Amanda said a minute ago, if you happen to be second or third generation homeschooler, we would love to hear from you. Please comment and let us know about your homeschool journey. We really want to hear about that. And
Yes.
so then after that, Amanda, you're going to have some homeschool helps for us. And then we'll
Yes,
have some
indeed.
news, and that will wrap up our episode for today.
Awesome. All right, let's check out those second generation homeschoolers. I was so excited about doing these interviews because I realized we have a number of second generation homeschoolers on our board right now. It was really neat to talk to them and hear their experience. Let's check it out. I am here with Casey Samuel Townsend, and I have just recently met Casey, but I'm super excited. He is one of several second generation homeschoolers that are on the NCHE board. So, Casey, hey,
Hi, how are you today?
I'm great. I hope
Awesome.
you are too. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So tell me a little bit just about yourself, and you can introduce yourself to our audience and tell us about you were homeschooled. So tell us about that too.
Yeah, so my name is Casey Samuel Townsend. I am married to my lovely wife, Casey Lauren Townsend. Yes, we have the same first name, which is really
Love it.
fun. We have two girls. Our oldest is Chariot. She's 13. Our youngest is Cadence, and she is 10. And we've been homeschooling them the whole way up. I was a homeschool kid. I did go to kindergarten and first grade, and then my parents pulled me out. so that they could homeschool. And I love it. I love everything about it. I'm very, very grateful looking back that I had the opportunity to homeschool. Some of the things that I really think helped me a lot was that I was able to focus on the things that were important to me, and I
Mm.
had time to pursue my passions, which at the time was music and still is. I love
Yeah.
music, and so I love to be able to put all of my young mind into that. And so I knew that I really wanted someday for my kids to be able to have those same opportunities. And so we homeschool our kids, and we love it.
That's so awesome. I love it so much. My kids, my adult kids, I feel like they say they liked being homeschooled. They're, thinking they're maybe going to homeschool, but they're a little unsure in the current climate. But what do you feel like from your own homeschool experience that has helped you as a homeschool dad?
Oh, that's a great question. From my homeschool experience, I think the most important thing was really that I had my family there with me. Like,
Mm.
I knew that my mom and my dad were there a part of my life. My sister
Mhm.
there was there doing school with me, and you don't get that a lot, in a public school setting. Not that you couldn't, I know a lot of great parents, whose kids are in public school, and they have a great family dynamic, so that's wonderful for them. But I know that
Yeah.
was important for me to have that foundation, and that was a really big issue that I wanted to take into homeschooling my kids, was that our family is a unit. We have life together, and it's not one individual's life going in different directions.
I love that. Yes, that's one of my favorite things too. I'm like, the gift of time. You will
Yes.
never get that time back. Yeah, it's such a blessing.
Well, and it's such a cliche, but it's so true, that every year moves faster than the last. You blink and they're grown. Yeah, we celebrated 13 years with our oldest this summer, and just looking back going, "Wow, how did that happen?"
No, I know. It happens so fast. Let's see. So if you were going to say anything to maybe there's a second generation homeschooler out there, or if they're thinking about it, what would you say to them?
Boy, if there was someone who was trying to decide if they should homeschool or not, they'll probably be hit with a lot of reasons not to. It's
Mm.
expensive. It
Mhm.
takes your entire life. It is very time consuming. It's really hard because there's nowhere else to run when the emotions get high.
True.
But it is worth it. It is worth every penny, every hour, every tear.
That is beautiful. Oh, I love that so much. I am Amanda Wares, host of the Homeschool Show, and I am here with Jennifer Smith, NCHE's marketing director. But what you may not know is that she is also a second generation homeschooler.
I am.
So that is so fun. So tell me about your own homeschool experience.
So, it really is kind of interesting in that I've said this a couple of times where it parallels a lot of the parents today in that my mom had a situation where I was public school until like eighth grade. We moved from Florida to North Carolina, and the education systems were there's a big divide between them.
Sure.
So there was a lot of classes that I was advanced in and stuff, and so she went to the principal to see if there was other opportunities for me to do so I wouldn't become bored and maybe get into that, trouble kid in class. And so at the time, they didn't want to work with her. Private school was not an option by location and finances. And so what happened is my mom started looking at this thing about homeschooling and what the possibility was. And we didn't realize it at the time, but all these years later, we're pretty sure that it was NCHE that was the great information that she found. And she pulled me, and I started high school as a homeschool student. This is like 35 years ago now. Think of how long ago.
Wow, that's
This is back in
awesome.
the 90s.
Yes.
A long time ago. Yeah, 1990.
That is so great.
Yeah, that's kind of aging me, but but it was wonderful in that I realized I had a very I don't think I appreciated it till now, homeschooling my own kids, but I had a very different experience, especially back then than just about anybody I knew. Most everybody was in school, and just got to see the world in a different way. Just study things that I was really interested in, and find the ability to, be a little independent in things.
Mm.
And I remember going to college after that, and just being much more an engaged student in a different way. And
Yes.
like all of the professors were like, "What is it with you?" And they didn't realize I just spent 4 years, like, pretty much learning on my own
Yeah.
in comparison, because we didn't have all the stuff that we have now with curriculums and all those things.
Right.
We just we did have, like, I think Bob Jones University was the big thing back then. I
Right.
remember doing science with them
Okay.
on it. And now with my kids, I realize how much, even though there's like all these options out there and they're great, and I've used many different things, I've actually done different teaching techniques with different ones for different kids,
Yeah.
is that I go right back to what I experienced. And I think that's kind of the gift of being the second generation, is that now I want to, even though they don't have the opportunity to travel like I did, because just what my parents did, I traveled a lot in the time that we homeschooled me. I try to let them experience the world in a more hands-on way.
Mhm.
And that really is something I notice has come out in their whole homeschool journeys. And I think my son just graduated at 16, a little bit earlier. And I think that's because he kind of got that real life experience along with his academics
Yeah.
in that. And I was able to impart that to him. And I don't think if I had homeschooled before, I would have understood how to do that for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I love that. So, what do you think were the biggest positives and biggest negatives, maybe, of being homeschooled yourself, and or how that affected your own homeschooling, like your own kids?
whoa, that's good. So
Mhm.
I guess the negatives was probably back then what you always hear, the social.
Yeah.
So I'm somewhat this introvert extrovert person. And so I was good at being able to talk to people and whatnot, even when I was a teenager. But I think I felt like I was very stunted in the amount of like peer group that I had, because everybody else was in high school and I was not.
Right.
So that you could see that, I guess, as a negative at the time. Where then a positive that I had, I got to travel around the country because it gave us freedom that I didn't have to be in a brick and mortar.
Right.
So I got to go to museums and historic sites. I remember just being able to photograph with my dad at 17 years old, and we're on the edge of the Florida coast at a lighthouse at dawn, and there's gators around us that I don't know what we were thinking, but like this experience that it will be ingrained in me forever. That
Yes.
you can't. I got that experience with my dad, so
Yeah.
it was like I wanted to have those experiences with my kid, and I've gotten to do that.
Yeah.
And that's like the thing that you can't replace, because you get the hours. I
Mhm.
had hours upon hours with my parents differently than most teenagers. And so I feel like I didn't have a lot of the negative things as a teenager because of that. And maybe there was a negative back then, would be that we just wasn't a lot of sources for academics to do. So I didn't have a lot of choices. So one of the negatives I realized that I turned into a positive is there wasn't like curriculums and stuff. And I just was a person that liked to read. So you can meet my librarians, that some are still the very old librarians now at my library that
Oh, that's
remember me
cool.
still to this day. And they're like, Jennifer, because I would come in and get books every week.
Yes.
Every week.
Yes.
So there wasn't the internet back then.
Yes.
You couldn't like go to YouTube.
Right.
It didn't exist.
Right.
So I feel like now there's just like 31 flavors of everything. My kids have more to possibly tap into to learn, that I actually have to kind of narrow them in and be like, let's focus.
Yes.
So there's a lot more focus in homeschooling now
Yes.
than I had to do back then.
Sure.
Because it's like I
Sure.
was trying to just broaden, because we didn't have what we have, but now we've created this world that now we're like, focus kids.
Exactly. It's
interested
true.
in?
There's so many choices now. That's true. That's true. That is a big difference. Do you feel like that being homeschooled yourself made you maybe a more confident homeschool mom? Or I've heard from some other people, either they were more confident or they were more relaxed as a homeschool mom. Do you feel like it affected you as a homeschool mom yourself? Or
I'll be earnest that I only did my high school years. So
Okay,
I was
yeah.
actually a very nervous new mom.
Uh.
Like when Michael, my oldest, was like kindergarten and we were starting with the whole reading, I was actually very like floundering in how to do all that, because
Yeah.
I just remembered I'd already knew everything, reading, writing, arithmetic. I'd done like, up to
Sure.
8th grade. So I had all the basics. So I think those first years for me as a mom were a little more nerve-wracking. I
Okay.
think I did have confidence knowing that the Lord had called me to homeschool my kids
Yeah.
and that what they would gain out of it in the other things, the discipleship that I could do, the experiences I could give them, the unique ways they could go about educating that I could customize to each of their needs or
Mhm.
special needs that they may have. Those things I think I was much more confident in than just the simple, like teaching them reading, writing, math,
Yes.
which was interesting.
Yeah.
So, like, it did give me both, like
Yeah.
some things I was and some things I wasn't.
Yeah. But you knew how to learn
But I knew how to learn
and you knew where to find the
and I knew where to
information.
find the
Yeah.
information.
So that's great.
And that's how I ended up with NCHE because
Yes.
and literally what I'm doing with you guys now, because I put the two together as I started looking for information at that very beginning about what to do with homeschooling again. Guess who I found? NCHE. And it dawned on me that that's probably exactly what my mom had done too. I duplicated exactly what she had done.
How
And I
beautiful.
started right at the same place that she did.
Yeah.
Now, in the 30 plus years or however long it's been, since then, I realized how much more I was blessed by the seed sown,
Yes.
that my mom was able to do this thing. And now what I can do, and now what will happen for my kids as
Yeah.
I see. So, like, my son was actually filming at Thrive this year and, like, going back to NCCH, he was actually volunteering with them. It's like, ooh, now we got 3 generations of, like, the connection to the
Yeah.
organization, which I think is great.
I do too. Beautiful.
That was lovely. That was awesome.
All right. What's next?
Well, Amanda, you've got some homeschool helps for us today, and I'm really interested in this one. So let's hear what you have to say.
All right. So a lot of times in homeschooling, it's a journey. There are highs and there are lows. There's a lot of times that it's just beautiful. And then there are some times that it just can feel a little difficult. And what do you do? What do you do when your child looks at you and says, I'm not doing school? Or they're resistant, or they're just fighting you on everything. What do you do about that? Now, as you all know, I still have one teenager left at home. And yes, there are times he can be resistant. All of my kids, I feel like, have hit that at one time or another. And for some parents, and for me even, it kind of shakes your confidence maybe a little bit, or it makes you just furious. Like, kid, I'm sacrificing all this to give you this education. What is your problem? So I am not speaking as somebody that has it all figured out, but here are some ideas that I have found to be successful, found to be helpful. And again, it's going to depend on your circumstance, your family dynamics, and whatever you have going on. But when my kids were younger, like older elementary age, if they got into that kind of, squirrely, they want to be in charge sort of attitude, I always tried first to give them some level of choice. And 9 times out of 10, this seemed to help. So, like, they did not have the choice to do school or not do school. That was not the choice. The choice might be, what subject do you want to do first? Or what book do you want to read first? Here are the subjects we're going to do today. Here's the work we need to get done. But you can choose what order you want to get it done. That's one thing that I've found to be really helpful. Another thing that I have found to be really helpful with my kids is that they know what to expect. So I am not in any way a type A mom, so this is really hard for me. It's been really hard for me, but having some sort of a schedule or a checklist even has been really helpful for my kids. So they know, okay, when you get done with what's on this list, you're done. That has seemed to help some of that resistance when they're younger. Now, when they get a little older, it gets a little more complicated because then they're teenagers, right? And it's a little harder. Sometimes it is important to think about what is at the root of this resistance. Like, is it just they're a teenager and they're having a hormonal day? If so, if there's a day like that and it feels like, maybe we just need a day. We just need to take this day and go do something fun. That's perfectly okay. As long as everybody knows, okay, we're taking today, but we're going to pick it back up tomorrow. That's perfectly okay. But if there's something else going on, if there's some other, is there some sort of something emotional going on? Is there some sort of anger or rebellion or just something else? It's really important to think about what's at the root of this and get to that. Even if it means, we're working on that and not necessarily schoolwork today. That's okay. Working on character building is school. That's okay. It's really hard though. It's hard for me, even in my non-type A personality. It's still difficult to say, okay, we're putting aside the work and we're going to focus on, our emotional health, our mental health, our character, our family relationships, it's difficult. But that would be my best suggestion for the youngers and the olders, to give them choices, to have a schedule or a routine, a checklist, something like that, so they can see the end. When the end is coming, it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm going to be working for a million years and never going to end. And if it's not just simple like that, get to the root of the issue.
I think I usually find more often than not that there is some other festering root, something else that's happening in the mind that is just keeping them from focusing, and the work just seems insurmountable. And,
Yes.
and sometimes, most of the time, it's just something outside. It has nothing to do with what's going on with school at all. Every
It's
now
true.
and then it is a looming, they're struggling with grammar right now. And it's just, they know they're going to have to do that eventually and they can't think about anything else. And, when I find that out, then I'm kind of like, let's get the hardest thing done first. And then
Yes.
that everything else is easy. And yeah,
Yeah.
but that's definitely, I am dealing with some of those struggles in my school right now. I have one left that is a teenager. And then I'm also teaching my sister's children, range in age from 8 to 14, all kinds of different emotions and places that they're in right now. And I think that's one of the great things, we've said this before about homeschooling, is that we get to take our time when we're going through the struggles. We get to slow down. And I think ultimately that leads to more learning, because if they're just getting pushed through and not being able to address all these other thoughts and emotions, I think the learning gets really halted. But when we're able to take that time to stop and think, then it leaves time for more learning. On top of the fact that maybe they're learning how to cope and to deal with all these other issues that are going on. We
That's
actually have a
exactly right.
time, a couple of times a week, we'll just all sit down as a group and kind of go around the room and say, what things are on your mind today? What struggles have you had this week? What joys have you had this week? Just to kind of get conversation happening. And that helps us to deal through a lot of things.
I love that. That is so great. And one thought that came in my mind, something else that I have done from time to time, if there's just a real issue, and sometimes this was particularly true with my boys, although I have reached this point with my girls as well. If there's just a real point where, they're not listening, nothing I say is getting through, there is the option to call in the principal.
Yes, there is.
And in my house, the principal is dad, and nobody wants that.
Well, I sometimes I threaten. I'm like, I'm gonna call him, and and that's the thing. I'm using it as that threat, and then he comes in, and he rises to the occasion, and he's just as kind and nice and has fun with them. But somewhere in there, things change, and then we're able to settle back down and get done what needs to be done. So it's
It's true.
nice. We did our series on homeschool dads. So nice being able to have that dad around that can step in, kind of take a little bit of that pressure off, give you a minute to breathe so
Mhm.
that you can try to get going again.
Absolutely.
And I love what you said about choices. We're always saying, you have choices, and pointing out the choices that they have, because I think so often they, at a young age, feel like they don't have choices, when yet there's actually a lot of choices they can make in a day. And those
Mhm.
choices have consequences. And
It's
I
very
think
true.
that choice word was a very good thing to bring up.
Awesome.
So we're going to listen to some homeschool news.
Hi, this is Jeremy Willis with your NCHE homeschool news for the week. Now, there are still a few tickets available for Liberty Mountain, the Revolutionary Drama. That will take place in Kings Mountain this Thursday, October 2nd. You have until midnight tomorrow, which is September 30th, to purchase tickets for this wonderful live theater event, retelling the American Revolutionary War's Battle of Kings. Now, please visit our website at nche.com and select activities and field trips for more information and to purchase tickets, or follow the link in the show notes below. Now, tickets are now on sale for Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. This festive play will take place in High Point Wednesday, December 10th. This will be a great event to lead you into the Christmas season. Also, it's time to start thinking about Thrive 2026. Thrive. Now, conference dates May 21st through 23rd, 2026. The two hotels that are part of this conference facility, Embassy Suites and Marriott, will start taking reservations at 9 a.m. October 1st. Staying on site is a great time saver. And guess what? You don't have to go outside. Now, if you have any questions or difficulty reserving your room for either hotel, email us at nche@nche.com or call 844-624-3338. Until next time, this has been Jeremy Willis with your Homeschool News. Have a great day.
Always so much great stuff going on in our state and with NCHE. So, guys, be sure to check all that out. You can go to activities, check out the field trip page. We will always have these things linked in the show notes as well, right?
That's right. We invite you to like, comment, and share wherever you're watching this or listening to this. And please comment and let us know your thoughts. Or if you would like to, you can email us at thehomeschoolshow@nche.com. We would love to hear from you.
Until next time, keep homeschooling with confidence and joy. Bye-bye.